Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajanna Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanna Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radha Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radha Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Valadeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Valadeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gaurnitai 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 Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Vishnupada Paramhamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottar Satashriyesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind Ki Jai Namacharya Shilaridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasani Gaur Bhakta Vrind Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Giridhari Bhagavan Ki Jai Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maiya Ki Jai Shri Shri Panchatattva Ki Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga All glories to Srila Prabhupada All glories to Srila Gurudev Hare Krishna and welcome to this session of Srimad Bhagavatam where we will be continuing to read from Canto 3, text 30, chapter 30. Today's text is text 17. We'll just read text 16 as well, but focus more on text 17. And just to remind you that Purushottam month started day before yesterday. So today is the first Sunday of the Purushottam month, and it's an extremely wonderful opportunity for all the devotees to not only relish the glories of this Purushottam month, but take it upon us to spread the glories and distribute it to other people. So, good opportunity to book program in somebody else's house, people that we know, or people who are not practicing devotees. Go out to them, book a program at their place, and talk to them about the glories of Purushottam month. It's also a good opportunity to discuss chapter 15 from Bhagavad Gita in this auspicious month. So, yeah, let's all celebrate it together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So 3:30:16 and 3:30:17. Vayunotkramatotaraha kafa samrudhanadikaha kashasvasha krita yashaha kanthe ghura ghurayate. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In that diseased condition, one's eyes bulged due to the pressure of air from within, and his glands become congested with mucus. He has difficulty breathing, and upon exhaling and inhaling, he produces a sound like ghur ghur, a rattling within the throat. 17. Shayana parishochadbhihi parivita swabandhubhihi achyamano apina brute kalapashavasham gataha. Shayana parishochadbhihi parivita swabandhubhihi achyamano apina brute kalapashavasham gataha. Shayana parishochadbhihi parivita swabandhubhihi vachyamano apina brute kalapashavasham gataha. In this way, he comes under the clutches of death and lies down, surrounded by lamenting friends and relatives. And although he wants to speak with them, he no longer can because he is under the control of time. Purport. For formality's sake, when a man is lying on his deathbed, his relatives come to him and sometimes they cry very loudly, addressing the dying man, "Oh, my father, oh, my friend," or "Oh, my husband." In that pitiable condition, the dying man wants to speak with them and instruct them of his desires. But because he is fully under the control of time factor, death, he cannot express himself. And that causes him inconceivable pain. He is already in a painful condition because of disease, and his glands and throat are choked up with mucus. He is already in that very difficult position, and when he is addressed by his relatives in that way, his grief increases. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Mahavishnu Goswami Niti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivash Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam की जा रहे. Shayana Parishochabhihi Parivita Swabandhubihi Vachyamano Pina Brute Kala Pasha Vasham Gataha. So this verse wonderfully captures the condition of a person who's a gross materialist, who has no other information about spiritual life apart from just enjoying his senses, being attached to people in this material world, to the different elements of this material world. How at the time of death this person undergoes so much suffering, both mentally and physically. So that is described. In fact, this whole chapter 30, which is called Description of Adverse Fruitive Activities. So far the description has been about the different elements of devotional service. In fact, the last chapter was explanation of devotional service. So a person who is not engaged in devotional service, who is just surviving in this material world in the default mode, what happens to such a person? How his attachment becomes so deep towards everything that surrounds him. It is so deep that ultimately, when the time comes for him to leave this material body, then he becomes he goes through an extremely painful experience. Now, a person who's not aware of this information cannot experience the pain of somebody who has already left the body. Sometimes we often see that some close relative passes away, or we hear somebody like a friend or a friend's relative pass away, and obviously we do feel overwhelmed. We do feel, if we are connected to that person who passes away, we do feel a sense of loss, and we even lament, maybe momentarily, but we do go through that experience. But over a period of time, we forget everything. But the death, when it happens to somebody else, is only a cause of loss. The lamentation is because of that loss of that person and the loss of a relationship that could have continued in the future of mutual benefit. At the end of the day, nobody mourns the loss of somebody who is of no benefit to me. Is it not? If a random person, a neighbor that you don't know, or a person, there are so many billions of people on this globe, and every day there are so many deaths. So when we hear about somebody's father passing away, mother passing away, relative passing away, it doesn't affect us because we don't know them. And sometimes even if we just know them, but we don't know them well enough, we don't really care much. Yeah, it happens, part of the world. But when it happens to a person who is known to us, who we have had a relationship with, whether a blood relation or just a friendly friendship relation, then we get affected. But the level at which we get affected is dictated by the relationship. What relationship we have had with that person? Was that person, we were dealing with that person on a day-to-day basis. We were deriving some benefit out of that person. Because in the material world, at the end of the day, all relationships are based on what can you do for me? And then I think maybe I can do a little bit for you. So the first question is, what can you do for me? So if you are doing for me and suddenly you die, then it's a condition that is worth lamenting, because I've lost something. So we say loss of our dear ones. So we lose. We lose what? We lose the gain that could have happened if that person was alive. And that is the loss. So one is that the perception of death. So when we see somebody dying or here, we do have that loss depending on relationship. But we are not aware what actually happens at the time of death. Nobody who has died and experienced it could write a diary. Just imagine you're dying and you're writing a diary. This is what's happening to me. I'm feeling pain and this, that. You can't just write a diary and leave it for your dependents to read and understand the pain that comes before you die. You can't do that. So because it can't happen, nobody can understand the pain one goes through when one goes through the process. Everybody is aware that death is certain, as sure as death. But what happens at death? How does it happen? What happens after death? That nobody is aware. And even if some people are aware, they are not completely aware. So until there is that awareness, that knowledge about what happens at death, we cannot prepare for it. It's like it is said that death is like a permanent, fixed destination that will happen to each and every living entity. It is just that the living entity does not know when it is going to happen, but it is going to happen. So when we know something is going to happen, don't you think we need to prepare for it? It's an event that is going to happen. It might not be a joyful event, but it's an event. Just like, before we all over the world, we went through a lockdown process in this pandemic. And it's not something to rejoice. It is extremely unfortunate. And it obviously turns out that it's painful as well, because it affected so many people adversely. But when it was announced that we'll be going into lockdown, what happened before that? People were preparing. They prepared for the lockdown. They prepared for that adverse situation so that they could deal with that as they went along before that event happened. But when it comes to death, we conveniently forget about, in fact, we don't have knowledge. And even if we have little knowledge, we completely forget about being prepared. And this chapter is giving us that information. So the Supreme Lord himself can give us that information of what actually happens at death. And once we know what happens at death, we can prepare accordingly. So in this particular verse, in 16, it is said that in a diseased condition, so when a person undergoes a disease, the fact that we are dying means what? This body is diseased. It is not at ease anymore. It's diseased. And because it's diseased, it cannot bear to cover the soul anymore with the gross body. Of course, subtle body remains. With the gross body. So the gross body is given up and another gross body is accepted. So a person who is totally, this description is specifically for people who do not know how to prepare for death. If you do not prepare for death, you are in the default mode. In the default mode, what actually happens? So it is said that at old age, it is just taken into account that usually death happens when we grow older. Of course, in Kali Yuga, there is no guarantee when death can come and in what form. But as a standard consideration, usually when a person gets old, he develops disease, his body becomes diseased, and eventually it gives way. So when that happens, in that diseased condition, one's eyes bulge out due to pressure from air within. And his glands become congested with mucus. So because the glands become congested, he cannot breathe. He has difficulty in breathing. And when he can't breathe properly, the breath is still going on, but he can't breathe. The passages are blocked with mucus. So the air, when it is flowing, trying to go in and out, it's creating a sound. It is said, Kante ghura ghurayate. You know, the scriptures are so precise, it even gives us the sound that a living entity produces when he goes through this disease condition. So it's like a ghur ghur sound that is produced. Then, in 17, it is said that in this way he comes under the clutches of death and lies down. So in the disease condition, when he's going through all this bulging and ghur ghur sound, he is on his deathbed, as they say. And sometimes he may be conscious, sometimes he may be unconscious. But even if the person is conscious, he's able to see everything, he's able to perceive everything around him. But his body, because of being in that disease condition, is causing him extreme pain. Now, when we feel painful, we try to express it. We produce sounds, whatever it is, and we try to. But because the body is in pain and the whole glands are filled with mucus, one is not able to even express that pain. So can you imagine that? I mean, one thing is to feel the pain and express it, which is not a good experience anyway. But imagine you feel the pain and you can't even express it properly. That is doubly painful. So this verse talks about that pain, that double pain, that is extremely painful. So when he's going through this painful experience, he's surrounded by all his relatives, his family members. And he sees them, he perceives them, and presuming they don't have Alzheimer's or any such memory loss diseases, he still remembers them. He remembers his relationship with them. He remembers all the important activities that he had performed with them together, whether it's the children or the wife or the parents. And when it is said that when a person is actually about to leave the body, the soul actually gives up the body, the person gets, and he understands that. He knows that this is the time has come. But when it comes, he cannot express it. He can't say it, he cannot express it. And in that condition, in that pitiable condition, it is said that when actually the soul leaves the body, the pain that is produced is kind of compared to the pain that could be caused by the biting of 1,000 scorpions together at one time. So that's not a good experience. It's horrible. So that is the type of pain one experiences. And because there's mucus in the glands, he can't even shout. He can't even express himself. And here he is seeing all these relatives around, and perhaps he would like to say some last words or express his desires or just recollect some moments that he had spent with them. But he can't. So he's in pain. He cannot express his pain. He cannot even express his desires or communicate with people who are surrounding him. It's a horrible experience. So here it is described that everybody is destined to go through this horrible experience. Every living entity. There is a nice verse that talks about how we get attached to so many things in this material world, and we spend so much time in taking care of all of them for their maintenance, for their upkeep, to acquire more of such things in our existence. But at the time of death, all that we have acquired and maintained, what happens to that? So there is a nice verse that says, Dhanani bhumau pashavo hi goshte nari swadhare sakha smashane dehaschitayam paraloka marge dharmanugo gacchati jiva ekaha. So it is said, Dhananu bhumi pashavo hi goshte nari swadhare sakha smashane. So dhananu bhumi. So dhanani bhumau. So dhan is your wealth. Bhumi, is your piece of land, your acquisitions, your house, your car, all these acquisitions and your wealth. Then Pashavo hi goshte. Pashavo, of course, in olden times referred to animals that was used for transportation, but nowadays it's all the cars that we've got, especially the fancy cars that we love to drive. So all these three things, they are left as it is. Dhanani bhumau pashavo hi goshte. All these things are left as it is. Then nari swadhare sakha smashane. So when we give up this body, these three things, our wealth, our acquisitions, our cars, they are left as they were, as we last kept them. When the soul leaves the body, cannot go with us. Then the next part says, Nari swadhare sakha smashane. People that we give so much time and attention to and we depend on are obviously our spouse. And in this case, although it says Nari, obviously the wife, it could be either or. And the friends that we spend so much time with, we feel that they are there to support us all the time. When we go through problems, they are the people who will take care of us, which in one extent is right. But at the time of death, your wife can only come with you up to the door of the house. So supposing somebody's died in the house and the body is taken out, obviously their house, car, everything remains as is. The wife is supposed to only come to the door of the house, shouldn't cross the door to go outside. That's it. So Nari swadhare, dar. Sakha smashane. Sakha is all your friends. All your friends will obviously cross the door, take your body and come up to the cremation ground, and they will burn your body. So Nari swadhare sakha smashane. Dehas chitayam, this body, deha, that we spend so much time in maintaining, upkeeping, and decorating. This body will also come with us up to the funeral pyre until the fire is lit. Dehas chitayam. Deha will be there till chita, lighting of the fire. Paraloka marge. And then paralok, after the body burns, there is only one thing that will accompany you. And that is dharmanu go gacchati jiva ekaha. With the jiva, with the spirit soul, there is only one thing that accompanies, and that is dharma. And what is our dharma? Our dharma is our devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So it is this devotional service only that will take us, or that will always accompany us till we reach the final destination. But in this material world, in this whole existence, people are not aware. And even if people have some broken ideas about life after death, there is no clarity. And even if people have some information about life after death, they do not really believe or realize that situation and follow the instructions to prepare accordingly. So it is important for us to understand that death is inevitable, and preparation for death is the symptom of an intelligent person. So preparation, if we don't prepare for death, then we go into a default mode, as we were discussing. So before death comes, there are two options. One option is a person who's a gross materialist. He's completely engrossed in his bodily consciousness. He does no preparations. He has no idea about life after death, and the destination he is going to achieve after death is completely unknown. So what is it? What is option 2? Option 2 are those intelligent people who prepare for death. And how do they prepare for death? By having the transcendental knowledge given to the person who is our transcendental well-wisher, who is the source of our existence. So that person gives us information about death, what happens at death, and how we should prepare for death. All the information is given, it's accessible to all. But very few people actually take notice of it. And after taking notice of it, even very few people actually implement it. So such people, they prepare for it, and they have complete knowledge that if they sincerely follow the instructions given, then their destination, their final destination is assured, and eventually they will attain it. So that whole process of achieving the final destination is very important to understand. Like we just said, everybody is destined to give up this body. But what happens to people under option 1 is, people, when they give up this body, they will take another body, and they will continue to move in this cycle of birth and death, birth, old age, disease, death, birth, disease, old age, death, whatever the sequence is. But birth and death is common. So there is B, birth, and there is D, death. So those 2 points are fixed. So B to D point is fixed in our life. But in between B and D, there is another letter, which is C. Birth to death, in between there is C. And what does the C stand for? The C stands for choices we make. Choice. Between birth and death, our destiny or whatever we have acquired in our past lives dictates our lifespan, our education, our knowledge, many things. But once we get that resource to continue from B to D, from birth to death, that is fixed. But what we do in between that period, between B to D, is based on our choices, the choices we make. So we can choose to be under option 1 and be in the default mode, or we can choose to use option 2 to acquire knowledge, and instead of giving up this body to acquire another body, we can actually give up this body to become deathless. Is there something as deathless? That's an interesting aspect. Is there something apart from death? So there are very nice verses in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna talks about transcending this material world, or give us a glimpse of the spiritual world where from having gone, one never returns. Yad gatvana nivartante tadhama paramam mama. Krishna says in chapter 15 that once somebody performs activities in this material body, in this conditioned existence, and purifies themselves of their material desires, that person actually transcends this material world and comes back to his ultimate destination in the spiritual world. And from that destination, there is no falling back. So there is that opinion, there is that option, there is that knowledge that we have got. But for that, we have to practice. We have to regularly follow the instructions that Krishna has given us. So Krishna has given us those instructions very clearly, and Prabhupada has given us the techniques to actually follow that instruction. And needless to say, the complete scriptures, whether it's Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, all these scriptures are special gifts given to us by Srila Prabhupada, which talks about or gives us the inspiration to understand this knowledge and to implement this knowledge into our lives as soon as possible on a regular basis, so that it becomes a part of our lifestyle. Sometimes devotees, when they start practicing the devotional service, there is also a bit of a concern that what if at the time of death, what if I'm not able to remember Krishna? What if I'm not able to chant Krishna's name? Like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram. So at the time of death, whatever we remember, that state we will attain. And then he says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajya tyante kalevaram tam tameva iti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavitaha. So before death, whatever we think of, that we'll attain. So if we think about Krishna, if somebody remembers Krishna, he will surely attain Krishna. If we think about the devatas or Swarga or the demigods or the devatas, we'll go to their planets. If we think of ghosts, bhoots, pishachas, we'll go to their planet. If we think of an animal, like it is said, sometimes people are, children or sometimes even adults, they say that, oh, I just want to be a polar bear and just sleep. The polar bear sleeps for 6 months a year and such a wonderful life. Do nothing, just eat some bamboo shoots and sleep. What a wonderful existence. Or to be an animal in a cage where everything is fed to you, they are being taken care of, there's doctors, there's food, there's natural habitat, everything is there. Such a wonderful life. So if somebody has such desires, sure enough, they will get that body, because their subtle body will attract them to enter into a just gross body, a gross body that fulfills or is able to fulfill that desire. It actually happens. But is it something worth getting into? A person in ignorance only can ask for such desires and have such desires. As a person, as an intelligent person, one has to think, what is it that will make me deathless? What is it that will take me out of this prison house? Just like Prabhupada says, we are in this prison house. And doesn't matter why we are here. What is important is, how can I get out? So a prisoner never thinks, oh, can I get a VIP prison cell where there is so much benefits, there is so much accessories that I can make use of. But a prisoner, if he's intelligent, will think, how can I get out of this prison house as fast as I can? And the easiest process to get out of that is to follow the instructions of the authorities. Make your activities, by your activities, prove that you are actually reformed. And if your reformation comes to the notice of the authorities, they might even pardon your sentence and release you faster than what you were destined to undergo. So similarly, in this material body, based on our past karmas, our destiny, we are scheduled to suffer so much. But because we are engaging in Krishna's in devotional service under Krishna's instructions, what happens is that obviously what is our destiny we have to undergo in this life, but the decisions we take and the way we react to the environment around us will dictate our next destination. And if somehow or the other we are able to purify our desires, then we are able to transcend this death and take a body that is not material, acquire our spiritual body and never come back to this material world. And that is the ultimate. So there is no loss or diminution in this. Neha bhi kramana ashvasti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpasya alpasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. In 240 Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that in this endeavor there is no loss or diminution. And any advancement one makes in this path can save one from the most dangerous type of fear. And the most feared thing a person is aware of or is experiencing is the fear of death. Perhaps Corona could be a close second. But death, at the end of the day, even people fear Corona. Why? Because there is a fear of death. As a result of the disease, we may die. And that is the fear that is gripping, apart from this aspect of spreading, is gripping everybody around the globe. So if a person who understands, who gets this knowledge, first thing is to implement it under guidance, the guidance of bona fide senior devotees. But at the end, we may also go through the same existence. Our body may be diseased, our consciousness may be a lot purified, even if not fully purified. But our body still will go through this pain. We might also have this mucus. We might also have consciousness whereby we want to talk to the people around us, but we are not able to. So the body will go through pain. So if we do not practice preparing for death when we are able-bodied, if we do not practice chanting when we are able-bodied, when we do not practice reading Srila Prabhupada's books when we are able-bodied, at the time of death, what is the chance that we'll be able to remember Krishna? What is the chance that we'll be able to recite or sing Krishna's glories? Remote. So this is a concern that devotees have. And in Ishopanishad, text 17, the devotee prays to the Lord, and it's a wonderful prayer. It's just worth memorizing. It's a wonderful prayer. He says, Vayur anilam amritam shari athedam bhasmantam shariram ato krato om krato smara kritam smara krato smara kritam smara. So he says, Vayur anilam amritam. So let this body be burnt to ashes, and let the life air be merged with the totality of air. Let it go. Let me die. Let this body be burnt. I don't have any problem. But my condition is what? Oh Lord, you are the benefactor of all sacrifices. Please remember the ultimate sacrifice that I have done for you. Please remember the devotional service that I have somehow or the other done for you. Please remember that. And remembering that, you remember me. Whether I'm able to remember you or not, you please remember me. And that is the prayer, the ultimate prayer every devotee should have. Because we do not know what is going to happen at the time of death, when it's going to happen. In fact, it is said that as a devotee, we have just one expectation, that when we give up this body, there should be at least one devotee around us to chant the holy name, to help us remember Krishna. Even if we are not able to chant, they are able to chant. But even if that situation does not happen, based on whatever situation we are in, this is our prayer, that the Lord, you please remember me, and you please guide me and take me to a destination that you think is appropriate for my spiritual progress. And that thought itself gives us that assurance, that confidence that Krishna is there for us all the time. Provided we listen to his instructions, he takes complete charge of us, our lives. And at the end of the day, doesn't matter what uncertainties we are going through, doesn't matter what we have prepared so far. If we just pray to Krishna that please you take care, that itself gives us fearlessness. And when there is fearlessness, it automatically moves or takes us towards eventually deathlessness. So as devotees, our primary task is to focus our attention and energy on devotional service and completely depend on Krishna to make us deathless. So this Krishna consciousness movement is all about making us deathless. We transcend death. And there are so many examples we see in Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically about Dhruva Maharaj. For those of you who are obviously aware, that Dhruva Maharaj, it is said that when the time came to give up his body, the personality of death came, but Dhruva Maharaj actually stepped on his head and boarded the airplane to go back to the final abode, his final abode. So Dhruva Maharaj, he stepped on death. It's a wonderful description there. So it just gives us, just these information that we get from Bhagavad Gita, they are not just information to make us feel good. They are actually information that Krishna gives us for us to implement. And in Bhagavatam specifically, there are examples of how devotees have implemented that information and the results they have got. So that makes our confidence in these instructions even more stronger. So at the end of the day, our job is to engage in devotional service. Krishna, at an appropriate time and based on our situation, will award us that deathlessness. So we should just focus on that aspect, and this fear of death will leave us forever. And this technique has been given to us by Srila Prabhupada. So we should be eternally indebted to Srila Prabhupada by chanting, by reading his books, by associating with devotees, and thanking him to give us this wonderful boon of deathlessness. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much. I see a few comments here. Is there any questions or comments that you would like to share? Okay, we have Sita Nandini Mataji wanting me to share that verse which talks about, I think, yeah, she's referring to the verse from Ishopanishad. So this is text 17 from Ishopanishad. Vayuranilam amritam athedam asmantam shariram Om krato smara kritam smara krato smara kritam smara. So this is text 17 from Ishopanishad. It's one of the 4 books that one studies for Bhakti Shastri. All right, Hare Krishna Mataji. All right, if there's no other question, we will conclude here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. And please remember, Purushottam month is going on, so please call up people, take some bookings. It's a good opportunity to do one-on-one, even though there is a restriction of not more than 10 people, but definitely one family can interact with another family. And if not, you can always do a Zoom program for your friends and relatives who live outside of New Zealand. So please keep at it. Purushottam continues till 16th of October. I think 16th or 17th. Yeah, 16th of October. So happy Purushottam month. Hare Krishna.